everybody, thanks for checking in. Tom Leyden with you. If you were just listening to our latest episode, we were joined by Patrick French and Diane Rothhauser. We're actually going to now break it down a little bit and speak specifically with Patrick, because you're a fascinating dude. Across the board.
Wow.
I mean,
I wish more people would say that and recognize how just fascinating I am. Just kidding. I'm not like that.
You have your fingers dipped in so many different pools. You're obviously... You work. What's your real job?
Yeah, I know. You could also say I have a hard time saying no, right? I work for a company called Work Human, based out of Framingham and Dublin, Ireland, co-headquartered, and we offer employee recognition programs to corporations. So in addition to or instead of an annual bonus, if you have our program, you can be awarded for doing a good job on a project. It's a monetary award, and it goes into a social feed on your company website so that everyone else can see it. They can congratulate you. And we have a lot of great data behind that shows it increases employee productivity, helps them feel like they're truly seen and heard and valued, and ultimately it helps companies hang on to those high performers. So there's a lot of great stuff around that. And I personally work as a customer success manager there. I work very closely with our clients to make sure their programs are successful.
Good for you. And that's fun to talk about, but in many instances probably not as fun as some of the other stuff that you have your fingers dipped in.
Yeah, there's also the passions that I get very excited talking about as well.
So among those are improv comedy. So we'll just take these one at a time.
Yeah.
So your improv comedy love, where did that come from? What has your experience been? How did it start? What have been your best experiences?
Sure. I mean, early on, it started, I think, when my dad introduced me when I was a kid to Monty Python, watching Monty Python and just seeing the silliness, but then as I got older, realizing how smart it was as well. And that got me into, in college, producing a sketch comedy show for the campus TV station. Emerging out of college, I moved here to Boston with my wife, Joanna, and I wanted to find some kind of creative comedic outlet. I saw an ad for the Improv Asylum in an actual physical newspaper, those things that used to be around a lot more frequently. And I was like, you know what? The whole idea of improv scares the heck out of me.
So that's why you do it.
So I have to do it.
You run to the fire.
I have to do it. So I went right in there, and it was really uncomfortable to start. But then all it took was, at about midway through level 1 improv at Improv Asylum, the teacher saying, hey, you're pretty good at this. Keep going. And that really, I could say, would be one of the moments that really kind of changed the course of my life as an adult. And went through the training center, got cast for a period of time in their NXT cast, which is sort of like their, main stage and waiting people. Eventually moved over to Improv Boston, was there for a number of years, performing on their main stage, started getting into teaching improv. And then that has dovetailed into sporadic opportunities in TV commercials, movies, things like that.
And that's what all the kids like to talk to you about. I remember you were there at the Lessons from Leaders series back in October. What was that like for you? Did you have kids picking your brain about how you followed these various paths and kept a lot of different flames burning?
Absolutely, yes. So they wondered first, okay, what exactly is improv? It's basically being funny with no script, right? Like, yes, at face value, that's what it is. But a lot of it is, learning, kind of tricking your brain to kind of think on its feet, right? And be flexible, and using that flexibility to make you a pretty versatile performer overall, not just on stage, but in anything that you're doing, in a social setting, in a work setting, if you need to present to people, right? That's kind of the angle I took with it. And then inevitably they said, well, then, what about this movie that you were in recently? And I happened to talk to them about Hocus Pocus 2 and how I kind of landed that role. And a lot of that was, frankly, an improviser like myself is very attractive to a casting agency because I'll come in and I'll just proactively give them 2 or 3 different options versus asking them for direction. Typically, casting directors, they want someone who's just going to have those proactive choices made. So that's a lesson that improv taught me as well. So, yeah, I think overall it was a great opportunity to connect with the kids at that event and kind of get them thinking about a possible, alternate track outside of maybe what they were already thinking about doing.
Even before that, though, I remember it must have been last June because it was the Pride event at the Senior Center. You were orchestrating little workshops there, and those were fun. I even participated. So walk us through how you connect with the average Joe Blow like me and try to get us engaged.
Oh, you were one of the star pupils. I know you have an improv background, too, a little bit, don't you? Yeah. At that event in particular, I was very excited to do that and excited at the participation that we had, because the other aspect of improv is that it is intended to be extremely inclusive and meant to build confidence in people by establishing a safe environment, a judgment-free zone where any idea that is presented has validity and will be accepted and explored and celebrated. So at that event, that's how I positioned it with the kids that were there and some adults as well. And we had a lot of fun just kind of learning some basic improv games, and then by the end of it, doing some improv scenes. And it was great to see, again, like the kind of the light bulb turn on for some of these kids and how much fun they were having, throwing out these silly ideas, and the adults or whoever else is there with them accepting those ideas and seeing how far we could take them.
Very cool. So now this has also sprouted a new tree, which is you passing on your knowledge to the next generation. So in what form are you doing that?
Yeah, so I'm very excited now to have the opportunity to be teaching 2 improv mini courses, one at Downey Elementary and the other one at Sheehan Elementary.
Well, elementary school kids, they must love it.
They do.
I'll bet they're really good, too.
They are quite good.
Because they don't care.
No, they are not inhibited. So that's the thing. When you're teaching an improv class with adults, you have to kind of break through that initial barrier of inhibition.
What are people going to think?
I know. It's the whole society thing that kind of, stamps out a lot of that just inner, that imagination that you otherwise have. The kids, they haven't had that stamped out of them yet. So they are very free with the ideas and very excited to jump in and participate.
It must be a riot. Do you leave sometimes just be like, I can't believe that
Yeah.
that just went down like it did?
Yeah, because they'll come up with silly ideas, but sometimes they will come up with an idea that is beyond their years, and it's shocking, right? And it's so fun. I always leave those sessions kind of I'm light on my feet. It's inspiring to see these kids get so excited about it. And the fun part of this too is that every one of these courses that I teach, we build towards them being able to put it on an improv show for their family and friends. And I tell them that right at the start. And initially they have some trepidation on their face, like, oh, we're going to be doing a show. But then as the weeks ensue, they build their confidence more and more and more. And in the past, when I've done this, the shows have been very successful. The kids have a lot of fun. The parents have told me, well, I didn't even know my son or daughter could do that, right? So that is another fringe benefit of these courses.
All right, innocent question. It can't be scripted, so you teach them the basics of like, okay, here's how you should kind of be thinking. So after you get them ready and then they go up on a stage, do you sometimes see what they do and say, I had no idea that was going to happen?
Oh, almost every single time. Every single time. And again, that's the fringe benefit of this. And by that point, though, they have learned kind of the ground rules of improv well enough to know that even if an idea comes up that could easily, in week 1, make things go off the rails, the group comes together and pulls it back in.
So you called them mini courses. So
Right.
take me back a step. Just consider me to be brand new,
Oh, of
blank
course.
slate, understanding how the mini course system works. Like, when are you doing this?
Right. So typically, I think they happen in the spring, and they were organized by the PTOs of the schools as basically additional classes that are optional for families to sign up for, really in the interest of just expanding the horizons of children and leaning on people in the community and their expertise that they're willing to impart. So I know there's a painting class. I think there's an additional music class. There's also occasionally some math and science-oriented classes as well, gaming classes, like card games and things like that, not video games. The kids are
Right.
well-equipped on their own outside of school to be doing that stuff. But so a lot of versatile options.
You're also a parent, and
Yeah.
you've got kids in the system. And how has that experience been for you? And Joanna, who's now celebrating her first year on the school committee.
Oh, wow, it's been a fast year. Yeah, being a parent in this town has been amazing, and both Joanna and I have been very invested in the town. With her on the school committee, I've coached soccer in the town since we moved here back in 2018.
Oh, yeah. Don't just glance over that. You
sorry,
quote unquote coach soccer, right? This guy all of a sudden is the coach of the freshman team last year. That was an interesting path to that finish line. Take us through how you got that job.
Right. Yeah, it was funny. It was on the tails of my oldest son finishing his 8th grade year. And I thought, I was a little sad, like, oh, this will be the last time I get to coach him in soccer. And there was some finality to that. Cut to August of last year, the high school was in need of a freshman coach. And if they weren't able to find one, they were looking at potentially having to cancel the team. So I had to have a sit down with my son, and I said, hey, look, I'm willing to commit to this, but are you okay with it?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've essentially been his coach since he was 3.
Sure.
I'm like, you probably want to have a different voice, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Right? But he was okay with it. It ended up being a lot of fun. It was a Monday through Friday commitment, usually 3 to 5 p.m. practices or games. But it was a lot of the boys that I knew already from having coached them or just, being around them for the last 5 years or so. I found it to be a very rewarding experience. For one thing, it got me outside in the afternoon in the warm weather and actually being active versus sitting at the laptop the whole time. And it was another area similar to the improv classes where I was seeing these boys grow together over the course of the season, become a real team, and really seeing some of their skill levels rapidly, increase, and they got better and better. And we ended up, we started the season a little bit wonky, trying to figure out who we were and the best formations. But by the end of the season, we really knew who we were. And if we weren't winning games, we were tying the opposition, and it was a lot of fun.
Thanks. For a lot of parents, I mean, really think about all those freshman parents who may not have had a season had you not stepped up. So, it's not like you weren't doing enough anyway.
Yeah, trust me. Yeah, the fall was a blur, an absolute blur.
It's all good. What other messages do you want to convey here while you have the mic?
Yeah. I would say, if folks are interested in an improv course, I'm always, willing and able to jump in and do that. For kids or adults in the community, I know there's a lot of, I think, adult-oriented events or courses that I think could become available at the rec center. And I would say to kids out there, too, if you have an interest in this, reach out to me. Maybe I'll leave my contact details in some way, shape, or form that people can reach out to me.
Well, absolutely. Right now, if anyone's watching this on YouTube, we have the email, which is what?
patrick.french@gmail.com.
So if you're watching on YouTube or watching on Facebook, you see that slate with Patrick's face and his email address. But for those of you just listening and hearing the audio, now you've got the email address in your arsenal. And I hope that you get some feedback, and I hope that this does continue to grow, because I think any community needs a person like you, many people like you, to just get people empowered and engaged. 2 E's, right? Those are the things that get the community moving forward. So thank you very much for all you do. And I'm glad we had the chance to chat.
You're welcome.
And as it relates to the previous episode, good luck with the Needham Community Theater.
The memorization is ongoing.
By May 10th, he'll have it all down, I promise.
Yes.
That is Patrick French. And for those of you listening, if there's anybody else out there in the community who you think it might be great for me to have a conversation with, that's how I connected with Patrick, by the way. Send me an email at tleyden@bestversionmedia.com, and I will find that person. We'll schedule a time, and we'll have that conversation and share it with you here on the Westwood Living Podcast Network. But for now, from Neroli, Mercato, with Patrick French, I'm Tom Leyden saying so long and thanks for listening.